Coming up, we're connecting you with the creativity and culture in your community, including a woman who turned her passion into a career as a fine jewelry maker.
This like oak leaf lamp that shone with like orange light under it, and I'm like, what class was that? And so I was hooked immediately. I took metals the next semester, fell madly in love with it.
A weaver transforms everyday objects into one-of-a-kind works of art.
Then it's just fun to see something develop right in front of your eyes, and it gets compulsive after a while.
And a new book explores what it takes to survive in the face of adversity.
He had just said from the very beginning, this is my new world and I'm going to take it as far as I can.
Join us for those stories and more as we explore the creativity, culture, and community that make us Western New England. Up next on Connecting Point.
Support for Connecting Point is provided by our contributing viewers.
Welcome, and thanks for joining us for Connecting Point, your source for creativity, culture, and community. I'm Saidalis Bauer. Every week, we explore all that the region has to offer, and today we're coming to you from Westfield, Massachusetts, also known as the Whip City. But our first story takes us to Easthampton. Heather Beck got the bug for working with her hands from her father. After falling in love with metalsmithing, Beck launched her own fine jewelry business, Heather Beck Designs. Along with creating custom pieces of jewelry for her clients, Beck also teaches beginner and advanced metal classes at her studio in Easthampton, Massachusetts. And producer Dave Frazier shares her story.
The amount of trust that my clients have with me it's incredible.
Working primarily in copper, silver, and gold, metalsmith Heather Beck spends her days creating high-end custom jewelry from hand-textured collections inspired by the natural world that she loves to explore.
You can't even see all of the detail in nature unless you're like right up on it. And I think walking has that magic effect of just being able to take everything in, like having a higher perspective.
She says she's always been good working with her hands, but it was a metal class that she took in college that changed her life.
My roommate actually had taken a Metals 1 class her first semester and came home with this like oak leaf lamp that shone with like orange light under it. And I'm like, what class was that? And so I was hooked immediately. I took metals the next semester, fell madly in love with it. And then it's cool that I get to keep doing that for a living, because a lot of people go to college for something and then that's not what they end up doing, but I still really love it a lot.
She creates her custom pieces in her workshop, studio number 47 in the Eastworks building in Easthampton. It's physical work using pliers, cutters, torches, and hammers. Lots of hammers.
I have more hammers than I know what to do with, but really I've got a hammer problem.
The process starts with a lump of jeweler's wax that she files down into the desired shape, like a sculptor working with stone.
So I carve it like an exact replica of what the metal is going to be. And then I'll mark out what the design is and the size. And then I continue to mark it with my calipers and also my dividers and make sure that it's getting thin in an even way so that I can make sure that the ring is not too heavy when it is in metal, because it might not weigh anything in wax, but once this turns into metal, that would like weigh your whole hand down. So I'm melting all of the 14 karat yellow gold in this crucible.
A highlight of Beck's business is something she calls legacy jewelry, made from family heirlooms that are repurposed into new pieces, allowing her clients to carry the memory of their loved ones with them, while also helping to positively contribute to the environment through ethically sourced, recycled jewelry.
To be able to transform jewelry that has already been mined. It's already up here. It's on this level of the planet. We're not impacting the earth in a negative way. We're reusing what is already up here. So impact-wise, with like my carbon footprint, it feels really good to be able to do this work.
Beck is also an educator and has been teaching metalsmithing and jewelry making since 2006 at various craft schools around the East Coast.
To watch my students either at library workshops or even in here when I do the wedding band classes, just like watching people's growth edge really blossom is just such a joy.
Whatever story brings someone to Heather Beck's studio, she feels honored to listen to it and be part of manifesting the next chapter of their lives.
It's pretty cool to watch my work be in the world. On most days, if I go out into Easthampton and I bump into a friend, I've made a lot of friends' wedding bands, and I just get to see the jewelry around and they're wearing it every day. And like, for someone to wear something I made them every day is like, it's incredible. I can't even describe the feeling. It's otherworldly.
When faced with adversity, what does it take to be a survivor? New York Times bestseller and Longmeadow native Michael Tougias answers this question in his new book, Extreme Survival: Lessons from Those Who Have Survived Against All Odds, which is the culmination of 3 decades of interviews with people who have persevered through impossible situations. I spoke with Tougias to learn more about the collection, the unimaginable circumstances his subjects faced, and what he hopes readers can take away from their stories.
For many years, I've been writing true survival stories where people might be out at sea for 3 days after they fell out of a boat or trapped on a mountaintop or in a crevasse. And as I was writing those and I would interview these people, I started to see some common mindsets that they use to get through the ordeal. And I said, what if I combined a book that had these edge of your seat stories with what I learned of how you get through adversity, real tough adversity. So while their adversity is life and death, I'm thinking we could all use these for everyday challenges where we're struggling.
And I wanted to talk about that because this is one of several books that you've written on survival, including your book, The Finest Hours, which was made into a Disney movie. So congratulations on that. Tell me, what intrigues you so much about this topic? When did this fascination start for you?
My first book of this kind was 10 Hours Until Dawn, and that took place off the coast of Massachusetts during the blizzard of 1978. And I kept asking myself, to the survivors, how did you do it when I would have burst out in tears and given up? And that's what drove me. So over the years, I would go to these survivors' homes. In one case, I spent a whole week with them. And every night we'd talk about what happened, and I dig deeper of, okay, what were you thinking this? How did you make that right decision without getting panicked there? And pretty soon it was coming together. So that was my impetus of, I couldn't do it. I want to learn how they did it.
So that if you find yourself in these situations, you can get yourself out of it as well, right?
Well, I have used it when I've gone through personal struggles in my personal life. So I have used, like the chapter 1 is the power of little steps that I learned from these extreme survivors. Don't just think, oh my God, I'll never get there. It's so overwhelming. There's so much and it's so far-fetched to ever make it. I'm thinking in my personal life, if I have a real problem, it's like, just focus on the next hour, do the right thing for as long as it takes, and you're going to get there, and give yourself pats on the back. So I use those techniques.
So before we get into some of those stories, because I'd love to hear about some of your favorite ones, I want to hear about some of the patterns that you've noticed amongst the survivors. What traits make a survivor?
If I had to sum it up in just a couple words, it would be tough-skinned individualist. They march to their own drummer, the very best survivors. And I did notice when I questioned them about their childhood, all of them had done something unusual in their teens. For example, one of them said, "Oh, I rode a bike from Canada to Mexico." And I said, "A motorcycle?" He said, "No, a bicycle." I go, "Who'd you go with?" He goes, "Nobody." I go, "Where'd you stay?" He said, "By the side of the road." I mean, I would have never done that at age 18 or 19. So you can see why he made it when he's in the North Atlantic being tumbled in a life raft in November, because he'd been doing some tough things on his own before. So he was a real individualist.
And do you think if you aren't born with these natural traits that you mentioned, like being an individualist or tough skin, is this something that you think we can develop as we go on?
Partially.
Okay, that's interesting. Yeah, elaborate on that.
For example, I would probably be okay with, okay, for as long as it takes, power little steps, just focused on the next hour, not the big picture. But I wouldn't be very good at a lot of survivors' strength of solving technical problems. Uh, they were good like that. Say their water purification system, if they're in the life raft, like Steve Callahan, who drifted across the whole Atlantic Ocean in a life raft. He knew how to fix it. I would never have fixed it. So some skills can be learned, and others I think you're born with them.
No, that's a really good point. We can't all be survivors. That's why we hear these stories and we learn from them. So speaking of the stories, you spoke to over 100 different people that have gone through extreme circumstances. What are some of your favorite accounts that we will come across in this book?
Well, many of the accounts didn't make it into the book because they were too short. So I wouldn't term those as extreme. So I'm looking for people that survived a multi-day event. And I open up with one of the most powerful ones. If you like, I can read you a paragraph. His name is Brad Kavanaugh from Massachusetts. And he was in a life raft with 5 others. Only 2 survived. And 2 of the men in the life raft, after a few days, were so dehydrated, they started sipping seawater. That's not good. It dehydrates your brain. And one of them suddenly goes, "Oh, I'm going to go to the store and get some beer." And Brad goes, "No, no, no, you're in a life raft." And the guy steps out and boom, the sharks get him. The sharks have been circling the life raft for 24 hours. So I open the book, on a kind of a dramatic note. It says, the 5 shipwrecked survivors clinging to the 11-foot inflatable Zodiac were in the trough of a 30-foot swell and looked up into the green walls of water. That's when they saw the sharks. Brad Kavanaugh, age 21, could clearly see 3 sharks, and one was larger than the Zodiac. Quote, "It was bad enough seeing how large the shark was, but even worse was that the shark could clearly see us." So I open the book that way. They're in the life raft and you're wondering who's going to make it and who doesn't. And Brad was kind enough to answer my many questions of how did you keep it together and keep fighting. And he had just said from the very beginning, this is my new world and I'm going to take it as far as I can. And I said, wow, that's like what Ernie Hazard said. He said, I'm going to go down fighting. So you began to see how their mindsets were really tough.
No, it's chilling just hearing the accounts. And I think I'm with you. I don't know if I would be one of those survivors in those situations, but it's absolutely inspiring. What has writing this book taught you about yourself and beyond the book, because you've been doing this for 35 years, collecting these stories?
I realized that we're probably all much stronger than we think we are. Because again, in my personal life with an illness, I used a couple lessons I learned, and it was just don't set a deadline when you're going to get better, but just keep making little steps each day. And pretty soon you'll string together a bunch of days, and over time you're going to feel better. But if you set a deadline and you're not better, then you're going to be crushed. And I learned that from survivors, that they just had that mindset. Like John McCain. I write about him in the book. He was a POW. And he said, I would hear rumors about us being released. He was 7 years of captivity. But he said, I didn't get too high from those because it would be crushing when it didn't happen.
And so what would be your key takeaway for readers when they read this book?
Well, they're going to be entertained because, everybody loves a good survival story and learn. But I have a feeling this is one book that people aren't going to lend out, because they're going to say, I'm going to keep this for the day that I'm in a tough situation. And we all will be. And then I'm going to go over some of those lessons learned. So unlike my other, like 10 hours until dawn, the one about the blizzard, once you get through it, you know what happened, you put it aside, you might give it to a friend. This one you're going to want to go back to, I think.
If you enjoyed that interview, head over to our webpage where you can hear Michael Tougias read an excerpt from Extreme Survival in a digital exclusive.
They just had to hang on, try to ignore the discomfort, and in Donald's case, say a prayer. He knew the situation was serious, but he had no idea of just how dangerous the voyage would become. About 5 minutes later, Donald said his silent prayer, then the drone of the engine suddenly ceased.
You can find that digital exclusive online right now at nepm.org/connectingpoint. Not all art is meant to be displayed on a wall. Sometimes it's meant to be a functioning, everyday product. At the Happy Weaver studio, artist Nancy Evans uses her looms and thread to craft stunning hand-woven tote bags, rugs, and even pet leashes that are meant to be used. Producer Brian Sullivan paid a visit to Evans in her corner office at the Indian Orchard Mills in his continuing look at the building's creative community.
As the world continues to march forward with seemingly endless technological advances, sometimes it's nice to see that some of the most ancient methods and practices are still the most tried and true. There aren't too many more ancient than the practice of weaving, whose history is said to date back some 12,000 years. Nancy Evans may not have been doing it for that long, but a passion and proclivity for working with her hands at a young age has led to a lifetime of spinning the threads. And the element that keeps the fire burning in her pursuit of this textile art form may not seem so surprising upon finding out that she's a former math teacher.
I like all the arithmetic that's involved in setting it up. How many yards do you need to make a towel, and how many threads are you going to need, and do you have enough yarn? I like the arithmetic, and then it's just fun to see something develop right in front of your eyes, and it gets compulsive after a while.
One other development has been the friendship and working relationship between Evans and Joe Casey. The two originally met while Evans was volunteering at the New Leaf Workshop in East Longmeadow. And when that center closed, the two have worked together here at the Indian Orchard Mills for the past several years. For Casey, it felt like a lot more than just good fortune.
I think she's godly sent. Everything that only goodness happens for me here, so godly sent, yeah.
We come in and we each have our own looms. I have several going at once. Joe likes his union special, and he always has a rug going. And we just, we're doing something to make a rug or make a towel. And whether it's the actual weaving or setting up, tying knots, just whatever needs to get done.
And by several projects, this means several different looms throughout the room. This Inkle loom was her first purchase back in 1979. That was followed by these floor looms, which are the pieces people tend to associate with weaving. Then there's the tablet weaving loom. This intriguing piece requires no footwork, but it does require extreme attention to detail. It also happens to be Evan's favorite.
I don't really know how I got into it. But it was, you can make very interesting patterns. You can make trees, you can make bunnies, just all kinds of different patterns, and it was just very interesting to me. And the bands are useful. You can tie up boxes, you can make pet leashes, just a lot of different uses for them.
The last time that we were here, we visited the building farther back from the main road, from which many of the tenants can enjoy a view of the Chicopee River passing behind it. However, from the front building, the view of the Power Canal isn't too shabby either. In general, most of the artists can be found next door in the building where the Dane Gallery is located. But Nancy Evans has her weaving operation in this building up on the 3rd floor and a corner office with a view. From this vantage point, the views cover not only both waterways, but much of this little section of town. But here in the mill buildings, it's about more than just the views, it's about the experience of being here.
Well, I think for a lot of the artists that have studios here, I've heard several people say it's their happy place. So they come here, and even though they're working at their art, it's still a nice, happy place. There's no telephone. You don't have to worry about vacuuming, except for open studios. Sometimes not even that.
After helping her young daughter build on her public speaking skills, Ayanna Crawford realized that learning this skill set may be something that other young girls needed as well. Soon after, Crawford founded the Take the Mic program, which offers sessions for children to build their confidence and self-esteem by learning the art of public speaking. Crawford joined me to share more about the program and its impact.
We know in business and school and all types of work that we do, the fear of public speaking, right? The fear of speaking to people that you might not know, the fear that you might not say the right words, right? The fear of not coming across clear and concise. And so we all have that fear. And so it's important that we start early in schools and in, early childhood centers talking about public speaking, because it affects every walk of life that we get involved in. Whether you work at the grocery store, whether you work in a college, whether you are a teacher, a professor, working with what you do as a host of a TV show, everything that we do has to do with speaking. And so we want to make sure that we are helping, not only young people, but those that might need some understanding on how do you have those tools, how do you have great ways of sort of, pausing, taking a moment and breathing and saying, you know what, let me reevaluate, or let me take a moment and figure out what I want to say.
You touched on that really nicely, kind of bringing the point that it doesn't matter what career you choose, public speaking is important. I was actually really shy growing up. And so when I first decided to pick this career, I remember, having to do public speaking, being like, why am I putting myself in this position? But not really realizing that this is a good skill no matter which pathway you take. So can you talk about how the confidence of public speaking helps build self-esteem? Why do they go hand in hand?
That's a great question. And I think for our program in particular, what we found was that when girls have confidence in what they are saying, when girls have a message to say that they're passionate about, that builds their self-esteem, that makes them feel that, not only what they're saying, that they believe in it, but they convey it to whomever they're speaking to. And so in anything that anyone does, if you're passionate about something and you understand the idiosyncrasies of what you're saying, and you yourself are very commanding of that message, then it comes across that way.
And Take the Mic has after school sessions as well as summer sessions. And you describe it as a fun and interactive environment. So can you walk us through what a session looks like, and how are you able to really encourage these young adults and students to open up and be themselves during these programs?
In the beginning, it's sort of a little tricky, but we get them engaged. So what we do is we allow them to do icebreakers. We know that icebreakers are a way to let your hair down a bit, get engaged, and get really sort of active. And once we do that, then we sort of start off with our initial class, which is our introductory to public speaking. We do a PowerPoint presentation. We have the girls do interactive activities, role playing, and also we give them some additional activities to do to showcase their public speaking. We might have them read a poem. We might have them read a tongue twister. We might have them read a short essay, something to engage them and get them excited. And then also within the program, we have a creative writing class. We have a computer class. We have a nutrition class that we do with the girls. We also have what to wear, what not to wear, health and beauty, because we believe that all those components with your presentation and what you're saying also conveys a message too. And then we have a ceremony at the end where each girl will be able to present a topic of their choice on community service project, and they present it to their peers, and we all get to listen to the skills and their presentation at the end.
I can only imagine how powerful that presentation at the end must be, seeing the transition and the transformation of these children. What has been maybe one moment from an individual or a group that you've worked with that has really stuck with you and in a moment of transformation that you've seen?
It goes back to my first initial program. And my first initial program was what we called a seminar. It was a one-day Take the Mic seminar. We had about 45 girls. There was 2 girls that weren't sure if they wanted to come. They were very, very shy. even in their peer groups with their friends, they didn't really talk at all, nothing. And after our program, the parent and the friend said, "Oh my goodness, my friend is talking. She loved your program. It was almost as if you cured her from being shy. She loved it." And so from that day on, she gradually gained more confidence in her own public speaking. She became a better speaker with her friends and her school and her parents. And for that reason alone, I knew that I needed to continue to do that. And that was in 2014.
And that does it for this edition of Connecting Point. Remember, you can always find all of the stories that you saw in this episode, as well as exclusive features, digital-only content, and so much more online anytime at nepm.org/connectingpoint. Our thanks to the City of Westfield for hosting us today. And please be sure to join us again every week right here for more stories of the creativity, culture, and community that make us Western New England. I'm Saidalis Bauer. Thanks for watching and take care.
Support for Connecting Point is provided by our contributing viewers.